This is the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast with Ferd Niemann. If you're looking to generate wealth and passive income in the lucrative world of mobile home parks, you're in the right place. You'll discover solutions to the common legal and operational pitfalls and how to optimize parks to maximize income. Your host is in the trenches. He's a real estate attorney, financial analyst, and mobile home park investor and operator. Now, let's turn it over to Ferd Niemann.
Welcome back, Mobile Home Park Nation. Ferd Niemann here again today with another episode of the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast. Got another great guest for you. Really look forward to talking to him. I got a lot of knowledge of this guy myself, but for those of you who don't, please help me welcome my guest, Jordan Savitsky with 50 West Capital. Jordan, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, Ferd. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, well, good seeing you again. Well, I know your background, but for those that don't, maybe give us a little bit of your overall background and then also how you got into MH, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So it's funny. I've had a lot of trouble classifying what I do or answering that question for many years now. My wife kills me about it because I can never really give a simple answer. But ultimately, I think I've kind of just settled on entrepreneur. Because I'm, sort of involved in a number of different business ventures, and I'll sort of talk in a minute about how that led me to real estate and MHP in general. But my background is really just starting companies, growing them, bringing in management to help run them, and then allowing me to free up my time to sort of move on to the next opportunity. And so initially I went to business school, and then I was in private equity, more on the sort of consulting side of private equity, where I was getting my hands dirty in the operations of the businesses that we were either looking to acquire or make investments in. And then from there, I left, started my first company, which is an emergency medical alert company. Seen those commercials at night. I fall and I can't get up. That is exactly what I sell. And then from there, I eventually found my way into real estate as an LP in many different types of deals and asset classes. I'm invested in commercial real estate, strip malls, office buildings, multifamily, single family portfolios. I sort of touched it all a little bit and have always made a point of learning a lot about whatever it is I'm getting into, because that's kind of where you find opportunity. And so as I got a little heavier into real estate investment, even though it was passive, like I said, I was really putting in an effort to learn as much as I could about, what I was doing when I was investing in, and I really fell in love with real estate in general. And started looking for the right opportunities to take down deals as a sponsor, as a general partner, and an operator, because that's really what I do, what I love to do. And through listening, I believe, to a podcast, who knows even which one at this point, because there's so many, I kind of stumbled on MHP, really loved the fundamentals, loved that it's I suppose a little contrarian to an extent. It's not the first thing, certainly where I live in New York City, it is not anywhere near the top of the list of things people think about when they think of real estate. And, if there's 100 guys that I know in my neighborhood who are going around raising money for multifamily or commercial, there's zero who are showing people mobile home park deals. And, to me, that was a big differentiator and advantage. Especially since, kind of the fundamentals of how MHP works, the relationship with the tenants, kind of historical nature of how parks have been run and the value add opportunities. Putting it all together, it became kind of a no-brainer. And so that's how I came to it.
No, good. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, obviously MH is a little bit of an uncovered rock, at least relative to multifamily, less so every day. I think there's more and more people jumping in our space. But I'm curious, what were you looking at? What type of deals were you looking at when you first jumped into the space, and how has that changed? And maybe some tips along the way as for deal criteria.
Sure. So, it's I've listened to a lot of, especially once I got into MHP, I've listened to, many podcasts, pretty much all of them. And, obviously there's a lot of operators who come onto these shows and they're always asked, what was your mistake? Looking back on the first parks you bought, what would you have done differently? And I, luckily, I can say that looking back at the parks that I wanted to buy and didn't end up buying, I'm very grateful that I didn't buy them, from things that I just sort of learned about the business, over the last couple of years. So, initially we were looking at parks in New York because it's kind of close to home. But, there's a lot of reasons why I'm very glad we didn't end up investing in New York with rent control and everything else. We were looking at some parks where, there was great value add, but the city hated the park. And, we felt that there might be an opportunity to work with the city and kind of build political capital. It's great. I love that. I love working with politicians and stuff, but for a first investment, would have been insane. I'm so glad that I didn't do that. But, when I first came to the space and wanted to really learn about it and sink my teeth into it, I'm really a learn by doing guy. And the first thing I did, as is I literally hired you. I put you on retainer before I had any deal that I was looking at specifically, or even knew what I was looking for specifically. I just knew that I wanted to be in MH and I wanted to learn more about it and, really learn the things that, I didn't know so that I wouldn't have to learn them in an expensive way. And paying an attorney is a lot less expensive, so to speak, than buying a park and, learning some six-figure lessons. And so that was the first thing I did, and I'm really grateful I did it. And I'm not getting any credits at Ferd's firm for this, but I would, honest to God, highly recommend that anyone looking to really get into the space do something similar because it was invaluable. And from there, ultimately, kind of put us on the path towards finding our first deal in the middle of last year, and we closed on it in September of 2023.
Great. Well, I appreciate the kind words. Definitely enjoy working with you guys as well. But yeah, I think it's important as you look at new deals in general, get new asset classes is to, quote, get smart. And if you get smart on podcasts, great. If you get smart reading a book, if you get a mentor, you start as a junior partner. I have a new client that is an employee of a different operator. And he's like, look, I want to do my own, but I'm getting paid to learn from this guy, but I want to learn a little bit more. So however that is, hire an expert, et cetera. Definitely recommend that because sometimes people, ask for help too late and then it's too late and it's problematic. So I was just telling you offline, again, we got a project we're under contract on, but it's got a lagoon. Well, I don't know how to inspect a lagoon. I have a general understanding of how they work, but I need to hire a pro. So I hired a pro, and looks like it's a $100,000 to $300,000 additional expense to desludge a lagoon. Well, that wasn't something that I was going to be able to figure out from the eyeball test, and maybe some people can, but not me. So right, so just another example of due diligence can save you from. I'm probably not going to buy that deal now, right? So that stinks. I wanted to buy it. I've already got the money lined up. I've already got a loan request in, which I talked to the banker. I'm sure I'll get a loan approval. I guess it's today. But now I'm gonna have to kill the deal. But you know what? The deal can't absorb a fee of that size. There's a couple other things wrong with it. So just prevention is key here. So that's a good.
Yeah, definitely, and certainly the kind of recurring theme when you talk to operators and listen to their stories about how they really got into the business and progressed through the business and grew their business. Anytime they're asked what was the biggest mistake you made, almost 100% of the time it was something that they should have caught in due diligence if they had known what they were supposed to be looking for. Which is, on the one hand, kind of hard to understand personally, because enough people have bought enough parks and taken enough courses that, you sort of know there's a wastewater treatment plant you got to look at it pretty carefully. You can't just go and, do the sniff test and go, I don't really smell any crap. So I think it's probably good. I mean, and it's going to cost money, and there will be deals that you spend money on due diligence, a lot more money than, you would like to sort of lose. And then you kind of pick up and walk away, and it sucks. But it'll suck a lot more if you just bury your head in the ground, pretend like everything will be okay. And then, you've raised money from investors, and, you lose their confidence. And possibly even more, probably have to put a PG on that loan to begin with your first few deals. And so, it's not worth it to leave any stone unturned when you're looking at the park and doing diligence. And hopefully everything will turn out fine. If there are issues, hopefully you can mitigate them. But if not, if you're looking at the park, you got to be prepared to walk away, even if you've dropped, $40,000-$50,000 on due diligence. And
Yeah,
I think
no, I
not
think
enough people are willing to do that.
no, I think that's true. I think you're right. I mean, yeah, 40, 50 is a big number, right? So we try to tell people, and I try on my team, is do what you can that's free first. Do the market study. Look at the zoning. You can look at preliminary zoning pretty inexpensively. I don't order my survey until I'm feeling warm and fuzzy about everything else, because the survey's in there 10 grand, right? I don't order my phase one until after I've ordered my survey, even though the phase one's only 2,000, but the phase one takes 10 days. Survey takes 6 weeks. So I'm like, well, I might as well, once I order the survey, I know I'm ready to rock. Well, I got plenty of time. I'll then order the phase one. And I'm, kill two birds with one stone. And I'll even tell the bank, I get loan approval, but don't order the appraisal yet until I get these other steps, because I don't want to be on the hook for $4,000. Because it can add up, right? And on our side, I don't have to pay for legal, so that saves me in the front end. But I mean, yeah, obviously, most folks, you got to pay for legal in the front end. That's just the nature of it. You got to pay for it before you get under contract, because the lawyer is part of the contract. But yeah, I think that's where a lot of, and I started off like that, and I, was because I didn't have the money, right? So I was like, well, I'm going to be cut corners. I didn't get a survey at my first park. I didn't know what a phase one was on my first park. I was like, crap. So I didn't get a phase one on my first park. Well, I got lucky, knock on wood, so far. Now I've since sold that park, so I really feel like I've gotten lucky, because I no longer own that asset or that LLC. But yeah, diligence and pursuit costs are important. It's hard to spend the money on pursuit costs, but it's just part of it. I know when I used to do retail development, we'd have 250, like 250,000 of pursuit costs on a deal, and it was like I was not the money guy, I was the worker bee. So I wasn't the one that ate it, but that really hurts. You're 250 into a deal, right? So MH, you typically don't have to get anywhere near that number, but yeah, I think there's a good tip in there to just do whatever diligence you need to it's better to have a little more cost on a deal that you close, but you've closed it with some good judgment, and it's better to kill a deal and eat some cost than to not have those costs and buy it naively, and then you got a bigger problem down the road.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think that ultimately, certainly you can try and mitigate as much of that risk as possible by doing, like you said, kind of stacking your schedule of when you're going to order certain reports, or do stages of due diligence based on, kind of the low-hanging fruit of things that you can inspect for the cheapest and would have the greatest impact on you saying, forget about it, I'm not buying this park. And I think that's an important attitude to have for any investor that's going to get into this business, as a sponsor. And frankly, I mean, I saw it coming out of, when I was in the private equity world. I mean, private equity firms, sometimes they spend millions of dollars on a deal between legal fees and analysis. And I mean, they could spend like 9 months focused on one deal, and then something happens and they decide they want to walk away from it. And, it sucks, but it's just the cost of doing business. And luckily in MH, it's not going to be millions of dollars, maybe on a, like one of these 10,000 lot Class A parks. But, for most of us, it's just cost of doing business, and hopefully won't happen many times.
Right. Okay, well, good stuff. So tell me maybe some operational experiences or tips that you've got from your parks, as far as what have you learned, post closing. Maybe something you already were anticipating and you didn't really learn it, but it's been ratified in your mind that, okay, I'm glad that I shouldn't take cash. We didn't take cash, or I used to take cash and it was a bad idea. Now we do ePay. I mean, any sort of operational stuff that is unique or that maybe you've changed your mind on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so cash is not something that I would ever accept for pretty much anything. Because I honestly don't know anyone that takes cash anymore operating real estate. Although there probably are people who do, but I think that a lot of the lessons we learned are really things that have helped refine our kind of our buy box and our acquisition strategy moving forward. So, I guess number one, your pro forma, your business plan that you're going to execute on, that your pro forma is based on, is obviously not going to work out exactly like it does. Doesn't mean that it's going to be worse. Good chance it could wind up better, but like there's only so many ways to model out bringing homes into a community. And you might just kind of model it out as, all right, well, I'm going to bring in one home every month over the next 24 months, and it's going to take me 2 months to sell it. But yeah, it's never going to happen, right? You'll wind up selling them in clusters. We'll bring in 3 at a time. There's busier seasons, there's less busy seasons. In the end of the day, you should wind up in the same place. But you got to be careful about setting LP investor expectations for, well, after the first quarter, this is exactly how much money you're going to get as a distribution, because you never know. The second thing that I've learned, which is great, is the value of having some park-owned homes in the park. Not a lot, not one of these parks that has 120 pads and 100 park-owned homes that are being run as a rental business. That, at least at this point, I'm not interested in looking at. But when you have parks where there's maybe 10 park-owned homes, 5 park-owned homes, maybe even 15, in sometimes in various states of disrepair, as it turns out, those are a tremendous not only revenue opportunity, but low cost opportunity to make your park look nicer. We've sort of learned through our park in Canton that we bought that, except in pretty much the most extreme cases, like a fire totally burns out a trailer. I mean, except for almost that, there's almost no trailer that can't be rehabbed to look almost brand new. You could put a new roof on, you could put new subfloor, new floor, new electric wiring, you could put up sheetrock, you put up siding on the outside, you build a deck, and you could do all of that for, maybe $10,000-$12,000, depending on, what kind of materials you're using and the size of the trailer. And now, like, you have a trailer that you effectively got for free in the deal, because no one that has 10 park-owned homes is really going to expect, as a seller, is going to really expect to get that much value for those homes, if any, on the deal itself. So you're basically getting them for free. And now I can take homes that are already in my community, I can rehab them, sell them for, in some cases, triple or even quadruple my all-in expenses, which is that's a huge amount of money, right? So like I was saying before, when when I pro forma'd out my park that I own in Canton, Ohio, we had a schedule of, all right, every month we'll bring in a new home and we'll get it rented. And so our gross income will increase X amount every month with the incremental lot rent. But then we sort of realized, hold on, if I could make $25,000 or $30,000 of profit on flipping a home, I mean, that's like, as if that's more than an entire year's worth of lot rent for another 10 trailers if I had brought them in. And so, it's short-term cash. That's not going to really add that much value to the park long-term, but it buys you breathing room so that you don't have to try and race to bring in new homes and sell them very quickly, to bring in the tenants, to get the lot rent. Like, no, in one pop, like, I flipped a home effectively. My park looks nicer because now I have a home that was a dilapidated piece of crap and now it looks brand new. I have a good tenant in there who's able to qualify for a chattel loan on a $40,000 home. So that's, very different than a, handyman special kind of thing for a couple $1,000. And I'm bringing great returns to my investors while still being able to execute from on the long-term basis on the business plan, where we're bringing in new homes. I have my first two ever new homes rolling in tomorrow and Friday
Nice.
to our park in Ohio, and hopefully we'll sort of continue to bring them in consistently from there. But yeah, so I kind of like some park-owned homes.
No, it's interesting perspective. I think what's important for our audience is you got to know what your market is. So when you just described that in Canton, Ohio, that sounds like a good market for used park-owned homes. Some of my markets, I wouldn't want to spend 15,000 on a remodel because I'm going to then sell it for 5. So I'm just like, I want to just get rid of it for free. So you just got to know, the numbers. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Where I like the park-owned homes is if they're already occupied and livable, and they come with the park, and if the seller doesn't put much value on them, we can then also get, if we're buying the park at a reasonable enough basis. And I think of one recently where we bought it for like $1.4 million, and it came with 5 or 6 park-owned homes that were worth 25,000 each, but the park alone was really worth $1.6 million. So the real estate appraisal came in strong enough that there was no release price or loan or on the homes. They were not collateral for the bank. Well, they were rented. Well, then we could convert the renters to buyers, and then boom, 25 grand, 30 grand maybe. And then it's just like, man, that's a big windfall. So those ones I like better when they come with them and they're already in good shape, as opposed to the remodel. Because the handyman specials, we've renovated some of them, and done okay. But I feel like more often than not, we look at, is the juice worth the squeeze? And a lot of times it's not. But you're right on the quality of tenant, because the handyman specials, they come back. So we've learned, rather than give the home to somebody and they flunk out, then we got to go chase them for the title and eviction and all that. We'll be like, you get the home after we make you put $1,000 up, and you get the home and we'll paint the house for you. You must paint it, or you get the home after you've made 6 months lot rent or something like that. And then because I've had some where we sold the same home for free 4 times in 1 year. And if you get the title back, it's not a huge pain. But if you don't get the title back, then you got to go chase it again, and it ends up being a bigger pain. So those were like, the downside is, you got a lower quality tenant a lot of times, but the positive side is at least I did spend 10 grand to, 15 grand on it for a home worth less. If you can spend 10 grand and get a home worth 20, yeah, easy decision.
Yeah, and I mean, this is where knowing this stuff and sort of thinking about it becomes very valuable when I'm looking at deals and analyzing them, because there's a lot of owners and operators, especially who got into the business in the last few years, who should not have, or should have, better modeled out the change in interest rates. But they're looking to sell, and the easiest way to quickly add value before you sell your park is, you sell a bunch of handyman specials for a couple $1,000 each. You bring in those tenants, and now you increase your rent roll, and it adds to the value of the park. You could sell it for more. And so like our park in Canton, the sellers did that. They sold like probably 6 or 7 handyman specials in the months before closing, and like you just said, they all come back, except now they're coming back to me, right? And
Right.
so I mean, literally the first time after we closed that we came to the park, we walked in, and the first trailer, most visible, looked like it was falling apart. And we said to my manager Ben, like, what's the deal with this? He said, "Oh, I sold that a few months ago to someone for like $1,500 handyman special. He can't get it, we can't get it together to actually get this place rehabbed. He had a partner, he was a contractor, he left town, he doesn't know what he's doing." And so I said, well, will he take $500 for the trailer? I'll give it to him today in cash.
Yeah.
Not even 45 minutes later, that guy was there. I gave him $500, and I got the trailer. And it sort of keeps happening again and again. And I mean, I'm in the middle of rehabbing my fourth home that I've gotten back either from, I mean, it was, and only one of those, by the way, was an eviction. One of them was an eviction, but the other three were people who they shouldn't have been sold the home to begin with because they just couldn't afford the lot rent. And they came to us and, and they told us that. And, I said, I'm very sorry. How about we cut a deal? I'll waive your past due lot rent. I won't file an eviction against you. And I'll give you, whatever, $1,000, $1,500 for your trailer that you can, use that money to move, find another place. Like, how soon can we clear out our stuff and get that cash?
Right. No, I think that's
yeah.
prudent. I've seen people do that a lot where they put the wrong customer in the home. And it's like, if you're a 25-year-old contractor and you got your name on your truck and it says, Ferd's remodel business, maybe you can handle the handyman special. But if you're an 87-year-old lady and you're just poor, I'm sorry that you can't afford the nice, fully renovated home, but I'm not going to sell you. You have to be careful on discrimination, all that, right? But I'm not going to sell you a handyman special. So that's what we've gotten to with on handyman specials is we need you to put up some money, even though it's free. You need to put up some money, future 6 months lot rent, future materials, et cetera. Show your bank account that you've got the ability to pay for materials. Because a lot of people think they could sweat equity those. You can sweat equity, paint the house over the weekend, for like $200 materials, maybe used materials, $80 of paint and sweat equity. But you can't sweat equity a furnace, and you can't really sweat equity a roof, or cabinets. And I've seen people do that. We're like, oh, I'll just fix it up myself, sweat equity. Like, your furnace dies and then you're screwed. You got to pay $2,500. So
Yeah, and I think that another thing that I've learned being in this business is that for some reason a lot of people who buy parks don't really work in a working capital budget into their models. When they're raising money, it's as if they look at the price of the park and then whatever LTV they're getting from the bank. And, so now I have to put up $1 million of equity cash. And they think like, that's it. All right, I need $1 million. I raised it to the cent. Now I can buy the park. But that's not how it works, right? I mean, you need working capital because you need to be able to take advantage of these kinds of opportunities when they come up. Like I don't want to lose out on the ability to buy a trailer for $1,000, spend 10,000 rehabbing it, and then be able to get 20, 25 grand of upside on that. I want to make sure I have the cash in the bank so that that's never an issue. And I think for a lot of operators, it is. And then ultimately the tenants you bring in it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy for the park. You really need patience in this business. Better to have a home sitting on the lot and bringing tenants in or potential tenants to look at it for 3 months and then selling it to the right one than selling it after a week to someone who their background check is and they have a terrible credit score because I just want to try and get some money out of this thing as fast as possible. This is a long-term game. I don't like people who flip parks, unless it's a sort of some kind of specialized scenario where it was part of a portfolio they bought and they're divesting the whole thing. But, people who just buy parks, jack up the rent and then put it back on the market 9 months later, I hate that, because it sort of ruins it for real investors who want to bring more value to the park for the residents and just in general. And so, it sort of all ties into, am I going to be short-sighted and bring in a crappy tenant and, do a handyman special just to get this thing off my hands? Or, do I want to be prudent, do a nice renovation, spend a little more money, knowing that I can get a lot more money out and find someone who's going to be a good long-term tenant? A lot of the best new tenants we've been getting are really like they're young people who typically have a few kids. They got married like very young. I mean, sometimes I look at applications and it's like someone that has 3 kids and their birthday is in like 2002. And I'm kind of doing the math. I'm like, hold on a second, 2002. Like, how do you have 4 kids? But but there's a lot of people like that, and they're living in their parents' basement, but they have jobs and they're looking to like get started on their American dream, just like the rest of us. They want to own a home, and those are great tenants. And so that's really who we look for, and we want to make sure that we have the right assets in our park, both used and new, to attract those people.
No, that's great. Our company just went through a marketing training, and one thing that we looked at was what are the things that make us unique, or what is our ideal customer or our avatar, and what is our marketing campaign and marketing strategy pursuing that. And you have to be cognizant of fair housing laws, obviously, but 10 years ago on Facebook, I could put in there, you know, husband, wife, dog, picket fence, 2.2 kids, income of, 47,000 to 50,000 within 10 miles of that dot. And they would target specifically that. Well, now you're not supposed to do that, right? Because like if you're, saying married couple, well, are you discriminating against unmarried couples or single couples or gay couples, or certain races and religions have lower marriage rates? So are you targeting? No, I just wanted 2 incomes in a stable family. That was what I was really going for, but that was the demographic. So how do we get there now? Well, you tailor your offering. So we put in a playground, for example. We don't say you're only welcome here if you have children, but if you have children, that's attractive to you. We put up signs in English and Spanish. That doesn't say, Hispanic welcome or unwelcome. It kind of says it's welcome, but it's like welcome along with English. It doesn't say no whites or no blacks. It just says both, or any of the all. So some of those things are strategic, because I think getting the right tenants is key. I agree with you. One thing that I've had trouble over the years getting managers to understand is that, a bad tenant is not worth having, because they're saying, well, I get the commission. Like, yeah, but you're going to be jacking with this person on collections, on rules violations. They're going to trash the house. They're going to be blowing you up to be a nightmare. Like, you do not want this person. Like I said, I'm literally better off. They'll be like, oh, this person's pretty good. We can work with them on this. They don't have the deposit, but we'll work with them. I can tell they're a nice person. I'm like, no, I'm better off just giving you the commission right now and saying, here's the commission for finding the applicant, but I'm rejecting them, than I am paying you the commission, getting 2 months from wrapping these people, and then getting the house back with $12,000 damage 6 months from now. And the fact that they've been evicted 3 times in the last 5 years tells me I'm probably going to have to evict them. I mean, these credit scores, eviction records, criminal records, like those things doesn't mean if you're a criminal that if you're a past criminal, you're going to be a criminal tomorrow. But there's a pretty good indication, if Jordan's never been arrested and the guy in the next room over has been arrested for 5 assault and battery charges, which guy am I more worried about beating me up this afternoon? Probably the guy that's done it 5 times, the guy that been caught and convicted 5 times, who's probably done it 10 times. So the managers sometimes don't see it that way. So it's part of our job is, upper level management or ownership to help them see the vision of, turning the community around, one house or one family at a time.
Right, exactly. And certainly I find that when I look at every single background check that we pull for any application. It's very rare that you'll find someone who good credit score, but criminal history and evictions, or evictions, but good credit score. And like these things all seem to, like, all the bad things kind of seem to lump together. I don't know that I've ever seen a single criminal conviction on a report. If there's one, there's always more. Maybe it's on the report, maybe it's not. You go to the county court website, you type in the name, you'll find a whole laundry list of, people who do the same, they're repeat offenders. And so, listen, ultimately, I absolutely don't care whether it's a family, a single person, someone who got divorced and has to move. They're old, they're young, they're black, they're white, they're gay, they're straight. It doesn't matter to me. A good tenant is going to be someone that has a decent credit score, because it means that they understand obligations financially and pay them. Okay. Someone that doesn't have evictions on their record because they understand the gravity of not paying their rent can lead to evictions, which could screw up your whole life. and and somebody who has a income where I'm not going to put them in a situation where they're going to have to be evicted. Like whenever I've hired a lot of people over the years to run the companies that I've started, and anytime I speak to somebody that I'm interviewing, the most important thing to me that I always say to them is, I need to know what you need in order to be successful, because I won't set someone up for failure. Doesn't mean that someone won't fail on their own accord, right? It happens all the time. But if that happens, I don't want it to be because I didn't provide them with, X, Y, or Z to help them be successful. And, in MHP or any kind of real estate, who wants to put somebody in a position where, with a high likelihood they're going to end up being evicted? Forget about the pain and the stress and the cost that I'm going to have to bear because of that. And then, we're also dealing with an individual who, and I'm not talking about people who are poorly intentioned and try and go from place to place and not pay rent, and then they make it a month or two and then they get evicted and they go to the next sucker. I'm talking about people that are trying. They have a job, but you can't put them in a position where they're going to be so close to the line with their income and what they're going to have to pay in lot rent or a mortgage for the home that there's a good chance that they're going to fail, so to speak. I would never do that. It's not good business. It's not good for the tenants, and it's not going to be good for the park in the long run. And so I think it's important to find the right people and put them in the right situation to help them succeed and live their lives.
No, I think that's prudent, and I've done that with employees also with various comp structures. I'll say, hey, base salary is this, but if you want to take a lower base salary, we can put you on a commission structure or some hybrid. But then they'll be like, well, how much could this be or that? I go, you need to do your budget. I remember doing with one of my lawyers. I was like, you need to know what your real budget is, not a negotiation, here, because it doesn't do either one of us any good for me to pay you less base salary than you can live off of, because then you're going to be stressed out working on weekends and mowing grass and painting houses just to make your ends meet. So you can't chase well, I want the upside if you cannot stand the downside. I remember when I've shown houses, I've done the same thing with the applicants. They'll be like, ooh, I want that house. I'm like, well, that house is $1,200 a month. Based on your debt to income ratio, you can only afford the one that's $800 a month. And they go, well, this one's not as nice. I said, I know that. And then if you get in the $1,200 a month, you're going to love it. You're going to have a party on move-in day. You're going to have all your friends and family over, and it's a great place. I said, but it doesn't do me or you any good for me to have to drag you out of here 3 months from now when you missed a third payment. And you are one flat tire, one sick kid, one, rain out day of your painting job from being over budget. And then what? And like, oh, I didn't think about that. And one of the lenders, I'm not gonna say who, but of the chattel lenders, one of them will approve 50% debt to income ratio, which is crazy to me. And Dodd-Frank Safe Act had guidelines of 38% debt to housing ratio and 43% total debt to income ratio. But one of the chattel lenders out there is improving people 50%. Like, that is going to lead to a ton of defaults when you're spending half your income. By the way, on it's holiday season, you worked overtime, so you had a high income that 2-month period, and you're getting underwritten at half of that for a monthly basis. What happens when you have you wear glasses, for example? You may not budget your monthly glasses. You didn't spend glasses last month, but if next month your annual prescription's due and you got to spend $150, oh, that wasn't in the budget. Well, you need your glasses. Boom, $150 wasn't budgeted. So on, so on. So I think prudence in underwriting is key in having written. As part of the written tenant screening procedures is good for liability protection, but part of it also is good for you don't waver from it. Like, well, look, we said 600 credit score, it's 592. It's math. It's not 600. And that's, some banks do that. As landlords, people seem to have more flexibility. And I get that it depends. We have a guy that worked for us that went to prison, right? So he made a big mistake, but he's been out of trouble for years and years and years. So he's turned his life around, right? So I've kind of given it a one strike. We look at it. If you got 3 or 4 strikes, 5, you're the problem. You know, if you got evicted once, it's because maybe you had a medical issue or you got laid off at your job. But if you've been evicted 3 times, you know, it wasn't bad luck. It's bad character or bad decision making.
Yeah, and definitely trying to understand the like I said, we get a lot of kind of younger couples, and sometimes there is an issue with with budgeting and spending, but I think it has a lot more to do with probably just immaturity than anything else. Like for example, we got an applicant that had a good job. They worked as like a DHL driver, making like 75K. Fantastic for a trailer park tenant, right? He had like a 670 credit score.
No.
Unbelievable. Like, I'm looking at this application. Wow, like we hit the jackpot. This is a great prospect.
And he had an $80,000 F-250. No, go ahead.
No, actually, even better than that, how it ended is when we were trying to get him financing to buy this trailer in the park. We collected the documents that we needed, specifically his bank statements and credit card statements. And what we found was every month he was maxing out his credit cards and bouncing checks from his checking account, because he was literally spending like $4 to $5 grand a month on fast food. It was insane. Like, you'd look at his credit card statement, and like in one day, this guy would hit like the quadfecta of fast food restaurants. Like, he'd go to KFC, Taco Bell, McDonald's, and Burger King all in one day. Like $125, and like every single day, 7 days a week. Crazy. And so,
did he weigh 500 pounds also?
I never saw him.
That's a lot of fast
I never saw him in person. My manager did, but I'm sure he probably was not the most in shape individual. But yeah, and so we actually couldn't even get him approved for financing because of that. And so sort of goes to show you, credit score and income are not the be all end all.
No, you're right. That's a good look at a comprehensive thing. I figured that's a new one for me on fast food, but we had a guy recently trying to buy a $60,000 double wide, and he made like 80,000 a year as a truck driver. I'm like, this is jackpot. I mean, just think about other folks. I mean, if let's say if I'm an associate attorney at a law firm, I make $100,000. Am I going to buy a house that's less than 100,000? No. Most likely, I'm going to buy a house that's 300,000 or 400,000, right? So my income is a fraction of my home value. That's just normal, right? Because I get to buy my house over 15 or 30
years, 20
right.
years. Yeah, exactly.
But this guy was going to buy a home that was a fraction of his income. We're like, of course he can afford it.
Fantastic.
Until we find out he has a $925 truck payment. So he got approved, which has been his debt income ratio was through the roof. I mean, like, so he got approved for a truck that was more valuable than his house, but then because the truck payment is on a 5-year or 6-year amortization, the payment was so high, he couldn't get approved for a home. So we got a guy applying for a home well below his annual income. Couldn't do it. Just poor planning before. And we're like, sorry, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. We're like, we're not going to approve you to rent because the same thing. You've got too much expense, good income, no discipline. So car payments in this part of the country really hurts a lot of people. Where I know in New York, not everybody has as many cars, or maybe one car per household. And in Midwest, it's like every household has 2 or 3 cars, and if they got payments on them, it just crushes your ability to get a home loan.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for those people. They should have gotten better financial advice.
Yeah. All right, Jordan. Well, good stuff here. Anything else you want to cover before we wrap up? And if not, where can people find you?
People can find me on LinkedIn. They can send me an email, jordan@50westcapital.com, 50. Or through Ferd, reach out to him. He knows how to find me. Happy to talk to anyone about this industry. I mean, one of the best things is that there are just so many people out there who are knowledgeable, have done lots of deals, own lots of parks, and are literally a phone call away. And I'm excited to sort of be joining that network as I, continue on my own purchasing journey in the space, and hopefully we'll now, close on our second park, and third and fourth and 10th and 20th and so on and so forth. And so happy to have anyone out there get in touch with me and chat. And thanks so much for having me on the show. I appreciate it. I'm a longtime fan and listener. So I feel a little starstruck being with you.
Oh, man.
Not really, because we speak all the time
Yeah,
because you're my
I know.
attorney, but
You're too kind. I just got a testimonial from a client, or a broker actually. He put in there, Ferd is a podcast celebrity. I was like, thanks for the testimonial. He was just joking around, but I'm like, no, I'm not a podcast celebrity. But anyway, fun stuff, Jordan. Appreciate talking to you always. Thanks for coming on.
All right, my pleasure.
You got it.
You've been listening to the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast with Ferd Niemann. Ready to learn more? Go to www.themobilehomelawyer.com for free resources and materials to help you succeed. If you love the podcast, go to Apple Podcasts, give us your review, and subscribe today. Thank you for listening. Neither the Supreme Court of Missouri nor the Missouri Bar reviews nor approves certifying organizations or specialist designations. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.